First, I would like to say thank you for Mr. Onofri as the first speaker, actually. So I'm here only for the second moderator. And thank you all for coming here. Today, I would like to present my paper on global war on terror, securitization, and human security, Indonesia's case. So, how to use it? Wait a minute. A little bit. Okay, because usually if we are in a forum after eating lunch, it's very hard to really concentrate. So let's start with a quiz. So this is a simple quiz. What are the common things that these people have? Anybody? Beard? Yes, yeah, of course you see all kinds of beards there. But one other important commonalities is that throughout history, we see that the three of them are in the radar of the United States as the part of the dark world, as the part of their social reality, which put them in the dark side of the world. This is related to a story with my friend who was going to the United States for some business. And he went there with his family, and suddenly they were held in the airport for the immigration procedures. And they were there for around 10 hours, asked many things. Why? Simply because their kidney, seven years old children, was Rifari, and it was on the list of the terrorist list in the United States. 10 years old and still interrogated very deep, very through. So this is how securitization works. It puts your name, puts some certain identity in a different level of alarm that then makes that to ring an alarm. So this is the beginning of the story. Everybody knows the 9/11 when the terrorist group hijacked planes and crashed to the World Trade Center. And on the evening of the 9/11, George W. Bush declared the global war on terror. The world is divided into two. You are with us or you are with the terrorist. So the binary opposition of good and evil is constructed through the United States power as the hegemonic power of the world, and then reach even the Southeast Asia and even Indonesia. So this paper, this presentation, is an attempt to understand the impact of the global war on terror and the subsequent securitization process in Indonesia to the human security in Indonesia. The securitization always argue that it is part of an attempt to secure the people. But what are the real impacts of this? So let us clarify first some concepts. First is securitization. This concept was born in the Copenhagen School on Security Studies, Barry Buzan and friends. It argued that securitization is a speech act, an attempt to elevate one particular issue from low politics, from the realm of low politics, to the realm of high politics. In the realm of low politics, you are bound by the democratic way of deciding things. You are bound by rules. You are bound by normal procedures. But if something is elevated into the high politics, into security matter, it's an existential thing. Something is an existential threat, so special measures is available. So if something is put in the existential threat, it's no longer bound in the rules, no longer bound in the democratic way of conducting things. So then it goes freely. And the second thing is that what I would like to clarify here is the human security. This term was used popularly, but what I would like to employ here is the Canadian approach, not the Japanese one. The Japanese approach is a very wide concept of human security, which is basically almost everything is part of human security. But the Canadian approach mainly focuses on the freedom from fear aspect of human security. So it's about your threat to your life existence or survival from fear. So this is from Counter-Strike. Indonesia, in 15 February 2002, George W. Bush announced the Second Front in Southeast Asia, and in March, if I'm not mistaken, Wolfowitz was declaring that they were going after Al-Qaeda in Indonesia, and then amplified through media and expert analysis, including some newly developed industry of the security experts. Even people who don't really know Indonesian language or Indonesian politics or anything at all claim that they know some groups in Indonesia related to Al-Qaeda, which is very clearly, and other things. So, new industry on terrorism scholarship was developed during this period as part of this process. However, in Indonesia, the stance of the government and the public was denial. Before the Bali bombing in 12 October 2002, so after that, the situation differs. Before, around President Megawati, there was political and military and security advisors arguing that Megawati should follow the Musharraf scenario. Musharraf scenario, taken from the name of the Pakistani leader, said that Indonesia should follow how Pakistan reacted to the global war on terror. So, should just jump in to bandwagon to the caravan of the United States, and you will get political, economic support, support for your military and other things, and then sacrificing a little part of the society, which is the radical groups, which, however, is not. It's also a benefit for the society. So, but this Musharraf scenario was not accepted, particularly because Megawati was lack of Islamic credential. So, if she did something perceived as attacking Muslim community, it will be very dangerous for her political position. That's why the stance of the government was denial until the Bali bombing. In 2003, the government released the White Defense Book, the new White Defense Book in 2003, and it clearly put terrorism and radicalism as one of the most dangerous threat for the nation, while it also assumes that there will be no military attack for Indonesia. So, in the anti-terrorism law and the draft in 2002, the indication of securitization was clearly seen. No judicial rights for suspects, free trespassing by authorities. These 2 points were dropped because of its controversy, but there are still controversial issues like intelligence-based detainment, so you could just be taken without a prior notice, just based on intelligence information. So I think the slide was slightly reversed. So this is the general's new game. The international pressures create uneasiness. Military and police saw a chance, which they then part of the elites offers the Musharraf scenario. It's unsuccessful because of Megawati's lack of Islamic credentials and a lot of problems in Indonesia's political and security aspects. But then the changing tide happened in Bali bombing period. However, state here should be understood not as a single actor, because there are a lot of different part of the government, and in this securitization process, the two main actors were the military and the police. So these two are competing each other. If we see recent news, for example, the military is always arguing that the police is not enough. They have no capability to do terrorism, counter-terrorism measures. So let us do that. Police could not do that. In the other hand, the police always say that this is our part. Yeah, this is their part, and this is, and we are successful to do that. Look, we can kill Nurdin M. Top, we can kill this and that. We show a very very interesting reality show in TV with police with hard weapons surrounding the base of terrorists, etc. So these two elements in the government are using the global war on terror as part of their securitization process, as part of their own goals. If we remember, the reform brings the separation of the military and the police. The police still lack of capacity, and the military have the infrastructure and the capacity, but now it was pushed back to Perak. So the military is willing to keep their privilege, like the military networks in regions, but the police believe that using this global war on terror, probably they can improve their capacity because a lot of money there, a lot of support there. However, this competition creates unhealthy situation because terror is an abuse-prone discourse. George Agamben said about the state of exception. When you are part of this exception, you are out of the legal procedure. If we see, for example, terrorist suspects are just killed, and we see media is celebrating. We see police see that as a success, even though it is clearly a breach of its own rules. But media, people, the government regards that as a success. Why? Because it is put in the state of exception. It is put clearly in the realm of high politics, which is no longer bound by rules, by democratic process. Because it's an existential threat. So the securitization is happening. There are two impacts. First one is direct, and the second is strategic, which is still hypothetical. This is the direct or practical impact: kidnapping, arrest, misarrest, violence, killing.
Yeah, sorry, if you want to have a discussion, maybe you just have 1 minute.
Okay, this is very fast. This is the number from Impartial this year. By 2005 to 2010, the highest number of misarrest is on terrorism case. It's 70. it is misarrests which were reported to impartial. There are a lot of arrests which were unknown. And not only arrests, there are killings, which are, of course, not put in this number. So the number is pretty high, 70, and we should remember that 2005 to 2010 is not when the issue of terrorism was at its height. So the number in 2002 to 2005 may be higher. This year alone, 2010, there are 19 extrajudicial killings according to the National Commission of Human Rights, and 14 of them are in terrorism case. This is the number that are reported and recorded in the National Human Rights Committee. And this is the strategic impacts, the climate of fear, because securitization also borrowing its power in the climate of fear it created, the danger of the return of a surveillance state, when the military come back to their old power, do not want to release their privilege, and the other things, the conflict complications, because of the construction in the mindset that the world is divided into two, the good and the evil, and all people with beard of all people with that so-called radical interpretation are evil. So they are in the state of exception, they are in the realm of apolitics, so they could be just erased easily. Then it creates complication in conflict areas, because then it creates that neutrality is ceasing in some part of the conflicts. So this is the concluding remarks. It happened, the double securitization happened when the United States securitizing terrorism as one greatest danger of this period, and most countries are affected by it. But in Indonesia, it was negotiated, and only after the Bali bombing, the Musharraf scenario was particularly accepted, and mostly driven by military and police, which are not united in a single front, but rather competing each other with their own interest. And this race then created an incentive to then which one can kill more terrorists, for example, which one have more capacity to do that. So then we see a lot of threats to human security. However, it is an old game, because during the New Order period, the military and also used the fear of the extreme kiri and extreme kanan as part of the securitization scheme. However, now it has the global context. It's not only a national domestic discourse, but a global discourse adopted in the national context, used by domestic actors for their own interest. So we will see continuing human insecurity for some part of the society. Thank you very much. Looking forward for discussion.
Okay. You have used almost 18 minutes for your presentation. So, one question at the first time, if you have some questions. Okay, please. Could you mention your name and institution, sir?
My name is Riwanto from Liting, Jakarta. Thank you for the interesting presentations. I have one question. Are you believe or are you agree with the perceptions or the allegations that in fact it is a U.S. State government design actually to create an enemy after the Cold War is over. So there are some commentators that actually it is in the U.S. interest to have a common enemy after the Cold War, when the communism, socialism is almost. So the whole thing is actually is design.
Thank you very much, sir. What I would like to clarify first is what do we mean by design? So, because this is important, because when we say it is designed, then we tend to cling into the conspiracy theories, which is pretty much, scientifically very hard to be accepted. However, it is also not 100% wrong to assume that there is an attempt within the government of the United States after the end of Cold War, trying to develop a new security concept, which is to define the role of the United States in the world. After the Cold War, there are some experiments. The first one is the Roach State. So after the Cold War, the main global security problem will be the Roach States like Saddam Hussein in Iraq, which they are not a global power like Uni-Soviet, but they have regional influence. So it will be they will try to control their region, and because they're a bad leader, then they will create instability to the world by, for example, acquiring weapons of mass destruction. So this doctrine was used in a short period of time, and it was used as part of the Gulf War operation, etc., and some operations after that. However, what I would like to say here is not like designing like United States is directing all events. What the United States do is to reflect upon its own position and its own interest in the changing situation of the global world, which is done by everyone. I mean, every country always seeing their position in the world and how they should adapt to the new world, and trying to understand what are the challenges that they have. But then the problem is when the 9/11 happened, then it became a momentum to give justification to some part of the government of the United States to push forward part of their belief. There are some, for example, it may be close to conspiracy theories, but we should clearly define this with conspiracy theories like the conservative, neoconservative groups, or democratic imperialist group, which believes that United States is good, is the beacon of light, it is the bastion of democracy, and it should spread democracy to all over the world. And they believe that even though this was done through imperialism, this is fine. I mean, so what they need to do is to clarify this position. The United States is the example for the world, and they should influence, and those who resist this positive influence should be opened. And using the terrorism issue, then it gives legitimacy to go further in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in other parts of the world. So, United States is not clearly not directing all events happened. However, it is using the dynamics which is happening surrounds them to their interest, and because of their vast amount of power, it influences us all, because the United States is the superpower. If the country who tried to create and adapt is a small country, of course the scope of the influence is small, but because the United States is the superpower, then the influence is big. But then what I would like to see here is how Indonesia is not, countries are not merely adapting to this global discourse, because there are local dynamics within respective countries to adapt to this global pressure. So Indonesia is not simply accepting or rejecting the global war on terror, but elements in Indonesia are negotiating this, not based on US interest, not based on global pressures, simply not based on that, but of course that affects, but mostly driven by their own interest, and this is negotiated within this respective country. And in case of Indonesia, it is to some extent between the military and the police. So I think that is so. It's important to clearly divide design means, because yes, a lot of conspiracy theories are around us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I have to stop this discussion because the time is already passed from the schedule. I think we need to give our presenter applause first.